and to all of us here, and welcome you and her to talk about her still life. Over to you, Miranda.
Thank you very much. My still life is called Banksy Photo Bombs Margaret, which I'll explain shortly. But before that, I'll firstly thank the City of Busselton and the Busselton Award and ArtGeo for accepting my piece, and it was thrilling to be a finalist in this show. So that's great. And it's my second attempt at getting into the show, and was very pleased to get that email this time, and surprised, but great. I'm just going to give a bit of a potted history about my life in art and becoming an artist, and then I'll talk more about the artwork. So I was always fascinated by art, loved drawing and painting as a child. All through school, it was my ambition to go to art college and become an artist. And then, much to the surprise of anybody who knew me in those years, including my husband Steve, I did a big detour into science and did a science degree in molecular biology, which when Steve heard about it, went, no way, couldn't have happened. But anyway, it did. But I did work in desktop publishing, and so found that of science-related work. So I found that a bit of an outlet. And then around my late 30s, heading into 40, I had an epiphany. And I was pregnant with my last son, who is named Vincent for obvious reasons. The least artistic of the three sons. But I said, hang on, no, this is not my life. My life is to be an artist. So I reinvented myself, started training at an arts academy in Brisbane, and instead of being a science teacher, which I had been for many years, I just told everybody I was not a teacher, and they accepted that, and I got jobs working as an art teacher whilst raising my children. I dabbled a lot in art in those days because with teenagers, as I was just discussing with the last speaker, can be a little bit intense. And so I dabbled in my art, but luckily as child rearing tapered off and I had re-met my current husband, I moved across the country to Perth and took up practicing art full time, which has been a wonderful experience for me to have that freedom and time to do that and pursue my art. I consider myself a contemporary realist artist, and I usually work in oil paints, though I do try all sorts of different mediums, and indeed at the moment I'm doing an online course in egg tempera painting, a slow and steady type of art, which I'm fascinated by because of its historical significance. During my time in Western Australia since 2013, I've travelled a lot, and one of the significant things that I and my husband did was travel around Australia for 9 months, almost 9 months, where he cycled 100 kilometres a day, and I documented the landscape of everywhere we stayed, doing a small study, and I used all different mediums in that experience because I thought, oh, well, I've got all these art materials, because any artist worth their salt collects art materials at a steady rate. I better use some of them and become a bit proficient. So I picked a different medium each day and did a small study. And I have gone back to the studio and done studio works from those studies that I did on plein air. And have a whole series called Oz Every 100 Kilometres. And working from life, as I did doing these plein air studies, is really important to me. I love to work from life. Of course, I use photographic references in certain circumstances, but generally I like to start from life. And I do landscape, figurative and portrait art, and probably my favourite is still life. Because with still life, the advantage of still life is things stay put. They don't move when you're trying to draw them. Except, of course, flora and fruit do tend to wilt and die on you. However, the rest of it will stay put, so long as you don't have young children around throwing things off the table. So, to this painting, there's many layers of meaning in this painting that I didn't really consciously put together at the outset. When I set up a still life, I play around with objects that I have, and I like to collect objects, particularly vases and jugs, and I have very many all over the house, as Steve will attest. And whenever we're in some, oh, look at that jug, I like that jug. So my intention is to paint every jug I own one of these days, and so they inhabit my still life. The book that's at the bottom of this still life is about Margaret Olley and her work, because she is clearly a huge inspiration in my work. I love her colour harmonies and her still life. Of course, she does many other artworks, but anyone who has any knowledge of Australian art has heard and knows of Margaret Olley. She was a great tour de force in Australian contemporary art world. She was painted by many artists, and two of her portraits have been prize-winning Archibald portraits. And she, in recent years, worked and lived and worked in Sydney, in Paddington, and that was her studio. Of course, she died some years ago now. So her book underpins this still life, which has two Delft-ware vases that belonged to my mother, who was also a Margaret. Though known as June, but her name was Margaret. And I am finding, as I get older, I am often harking back to my mother and things of significance to her old pottery or jugs or whatever, her wedding dress I've got. And I'm thinking of paintings to include them in. I just am drawn to this whole historical significance of family and matrilineal lineage and all those kind of things. She died nearly 40 years ago, but she's ever present in my mind and heart. And so her things appear in my paintings. And I often have Australian native flora in my paintings also. This has actually been picked in Nannup, of one of the many gum trees that are in Nannup, where I now reside. It is also reminiscent of the bush grave that my mother has. It's a very bushy crematorium that her ashes are in. So that harks back to my mother as well. And I do like to have this dramatic lighting. I don't know why, I just like it. And as another artist said to me, oh, it's a really nice still life with this ominous shadow over it. And you're playing with us, Miranda. And I went, okay, yes, I am. But not in a deliberate sense. I just find it interesting to test myself, I suppose, of getting what looks like a real shadow or whatever. And that brings me to Banksy. This Banksy sticker is on the wall of my temporary studio at the moment. The story behind it is I didn't put it there. The original tenants of our house, which isn't very old, it's about 5 or 6 years old, had it there. And when our real estate agent was taking Steve, my husband, around the house going, oh, we'll get this fixed and we'll get that, and they said, oh, we'll get this sticker removed. Stickers, no, we like that, leave it there. Because of course Banksy is such an amazing contemporary artist that we all know about. And so there it was, I set up my still life with the lighting and everything, and there's that Banksy sticker, and I thought, oh, I do like to work from life. I think we'll just have Banksy in there. And of course it's that famous work of a terrorist throwing a bunch of flowers. And here it is, flowers being thrown at my still life work. And then there's the photo bombing reference. It's just kind of snuck in there, photo bombing my still life. And that's why I call Banksy photo bombs Margaret. So there's Margaret and Margaret. And so there's all these different layers of meaning in there that weren't consciously put together, but in the end created, for me, an interesting kind of work. So I do a lot of still life, and I actually have several up in Art in the Park this weekend and across at the local Busselton ArtGeo Gallery. And I did win first prize in oils, but for plein air paintings that I did a series of 16 from a viewpoint in Nana, where we now reside, Tank 7. And I did a kind of experimental work of putting 16 different views painted on 16 different days together to create one panoramic view. So that was lovely to win that, and a couple of highly commended as well. And another thing I just would like to mention is that I have been getting involved in the local arts community, and in Nanut last year ran an art trail which had 8 venues and was really quite a good success for the artists and the community. And this year I'm again organising an art trail called the Blackwood River Art Trail that encompasses Nanut, Bridgetown, Balingup and surrounding little hamlets and townships, and hopefully it'll turn into quite a big community event, and looking forward to seeing how it goes this year. And finally, this year I'll also be opening my very own studio gallery called the Eyrie, because we live on top of a hill and have a wonderful view across the Blackwood River. Even though the studio's under the house, it still has the view. And yeah, hopefully I'll meet people and welcome many of you to see my studio gallery. Thank you.
Sounds like it.